Welcome to Modus Cafe. Join us for fun, lighthearted, and educational conversations around training, athletic longevity, and the human side of climbing. With your hosts, Mercedes Pohlmeyer and Katja Dev.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another podcast. I'm Mercedes, your host, and today I want to talk about assessments for your climbing. Oftentimes we can kind of stray off the path and wonder, why are we even doing the things that we're doing in climbing, especially if you've put together a training plan and it's not quite working out for you. So really today, what I want to do is go over some of these assessments that could help you understand a little bit more about your own climbing technique and some of your strengths and weaknesses. Of course, none of these assessments are going to be spot on and tell you exactly what is going on, especially when it comes to the technique side. Technique is very difficult to assess, mostly because I believe, climbing is an art form. There's no perfect way of doing anything. You're going to find the best way to climb for your own body. And so I really do love that climbing is more of an art form and, of course, a skill sport over anything else. So putting, parameters on how a certain move should look is really hard to do, but we can get a good understanding of kind of where we're really good in our climbing and places that we need to work on. So in addition to this podcast, I've actually made a blog post with about 50 questions to help you understand where your climbing and health is at right now. So when it comes to assessing, I think it can be a really good thing because it kind of puts a pin in on a map. Like, where are you right now? And in the past, for myself, when I haven't really assessed or put a lot of thought into where am I going, I end up working on a lot of my strengths. For example, I would consistently work on my finger strength and my power. I loved the campus board, and I would consistently do that and then wonder why I couldn't finish boulder problems. And this was earlier on in my climbing career. And then finally, once I put some effort into improving my general climbing endurance, then things really changed for me. Once I focused on my capacity, I was really able to break through a lot of grades. So it can be really worth putting some focus into your training plans that come from understanding where your climbing is at. So to make sure that you understand that assessments, again, they're not perfect. This is really just a way to provide some clarity around where you are in your climbing and hopefully provide a direction for your training, especially if you're coming up with your own training program. The thing about putting too much emphasis on numbers, those don't always paint a good picture. But if you are lacking, let's say, in some upper body strength, that could be a really low-hanging fruit for you. And upper body strength is something very tangible that you can work on and see improvements over time. And as you're going through the questionnaire and you're thinking about assessments, just remember that if you're going to work on something that you kind of suck at, you have to let go of something that you are already working on and that you're enjoying. So there is going to be a trade-off with going down this path of working on some of your weaknesses. You can't do it all. And again, there's so many assessments that you can do, and you can actually do a very easy Google search and find a ton of assessments. But what you want to do once you find out, okay, here are the areas that I need to work on, figure out what you think is going to be the easiest thing for you to tackle, especially when it comes to your own lifestyle. And think about things that you could enjoy more over other things. If you enjoy what you're doing, you're going to be able to stick with it. And honestly, when it comes to assessments, I think the number one thing that most of my clients, like why clients come to me, is because of lack of consistency. If you can be consistent in your training, you're going to see a lot of great outcomes, probably no matter what you're really working on. Often it's when you get to the higher grades or you've hit a plateau for a really long time. Okay, now it's time to reassess and really focus on what are the things you need to work on. So just think about that. What is your consistency like right now? And maybe focus more on that first before diving into some of these more physical tests and some of the mentality tests. So in terms of the testing, There's a couple different categories that I put together. The first is physicality, seeing what your specific strengths are for climbing, and then general strength, as well as some power and mobility. I love mobility testing. And, there are some very standard tests that you can do. But first, you need to make sure that you can actually hang off of a 20 millimeter edge. And it's okay to do a 20 mil max hang test as long as you can unweight yourself if you can't actually hold onto a 20 mil edge. If you'd like to do a really short assessment, the 9C strength test by Magnus Mippo, it looks really fun. I think he's had a lot of people go through it. Again, it's probably not a super straightforward explanation of why you're climbing at a certain grade based on your test results, but it's fun. People have done it, and it can give you a good idea of whether your strength matches up with your climbing grade. Another website that you could possibly go to is the strengthclimbing.com, where they have a bunch of different tests that you can put your results into, and they're going to give you some benchmarks to work towards or compare you to other people in the same category or grade as you. Getting a perspective and having a comparison can be very helpful. You probably have a good idea of where you're at physically and where you kind of need to work on, but it's good to kind of get into some of the numbers. So with the general testing, I like the 2-rep pull-up. I don't like max testing, just because there is such a high risk of injury. So a 2-rep pull-up, that is good enough. There is also a 3-rep chest press or a bench press if you know how to bench press. And these can be really good indicators of how strong you are. So there is the 3-rep deadlift. I love this one because it is a good general overview of your body strength. It is a pulling motion and a hinging motion, but it gives you a good idea of how strong you really are in your whole body. And of course, we want to test our core strength, especially if you have trouble on overhangs. These core strength exercises can give you a good idea of where you're at, and you can just use these exercises as a way to get stronger. And I would say all of these exercises that you're testing on, you can use those in your training program to get better. And I would say that's something that I tend to do is I use my strength training as my own measurement. I actually don't do physical testing. One, because it takes a lot out of you. I don't often have time for it, but I can continue to see my progress and where I'm at because I consistently show up for strength training. All right, so where I think this questionnaire is the most important is actually the technique assessment. And again, this is really difficult to put numbers on. And so in the questionnaire, I give you kind of a range from 1 to 5, and you put down how confident you are in each of the techniques. And when it comes to the technique, I really do think that you should be videoing yourself and getting used to watching yourself climbing. It might be tough and kind of weird in the beginning to look at yourself while you're climbing. You may also not know what to look for when it comes to technique and while you're watching yourself. Try to look at yourself as separate from yourself. This is a different climber that you're watching, and kind of watch with a curiosity or a critical eye and with no judgment. You really want to just pick out some things that you're like, oh, okay, that was a really nice move. What did I do there? It looked like it was easy. Why did it look easy? Oh, that move, it looked like I couldn't quite get my foot up. Why was that? And keep asking yourself these questions. And so when it comes to the technique assessment, it is just a lot of reflection and going through all of the different movements that you might encounter on a climbing wall. And the ones that I came up with, there's a bunch of them. Of course, you can keep adding to these, but these are questions that I tend to look for when I'm watching my clients climb. And these are also questions that I will ask my clients. So some of the major categories in the technique section is foot confidence. How confident are you on your feet and using your feet in different ways? Then there's a tension section. And I think tension is definitely one of the major key components of overhanging climbing and staying on the wall. And there are a lot of questions on how do you, or how well do you keep tension on the wall. The next component is just general movement on the wall. These are maybe what you might consider positions, or how you might put your body on the wall. And it also kind of combines a little bit of mobility in the movement questionnaire. And then the next section is rating your confidence on specific terrains and hold types. You probably already know which hold types you really like, which ones you excel at, and which ones you completely avoid. So just taking note of those, and you can also give yourself a number next to each hold type and terrain. And maybe over time, as you work on your anti-style, you're going to see maybe one number creep up. And if you do that, that's awesome. And then we go into some mentality questions. And I think for a lot of people, this could be a low-hanging fruit, especially when it comes to memorization and sequencing, but as well as the things that you say to yourself as you're climbing, or when you fail at a climb, what are you saying to yourself in that moment? Those things can really affect how we climb. It affects our confidence on the wall. If we're constantly being negative and maybe not having fun while we're climbing, it's going to show up in your performance. So I think this is a really important section to think about. And these are definitely more reflective questions. They're less of a scale. Some of them are on a scale, but some of them are things you're going to have to really think about. And I would journal about some of these questions. The last section of this questionnaire, where I think a lot of climbing assessments fall short, is actually just a general health questionnaire. As a human, are you able to function optimally? Are you thriving and not just surviving? And some of these general categories are sleep, recovery, nutrition, lifestyle factors, and also your blood panel. Like, what does your blood panel look like? And I really do think that you can fix a lot of your energy issues. If you find that you aren't keeping your energy up throughout a whole training session, then it could be one of these factors. And if your energy isn't up during a session, how are you going to perform your best? Especially if you're going through seasons of feeling worse, where you see your performance slide back, it's most likely one of these factors that you need to consider. So come back to the health questionnaire, consider it maybe every 3 months, coming back to some of these and making sure that you're sleeping enough, that you're getting enough of the proper nutrition, and as well as making sure as a female that your menstrual cycle is on time and that it's regular, because those things really do affect how we show up each day and how much energy we have to complete our training. And the last part of this questionnaire on my blog is actually from Precision Nutrition. So I'm a super coach for Precision Nutrition. I think they're one of the best coaching services for nutrition and lifestyle, because they really focus on behavior change. And they have these, what it's called, 4 crazy questions. And this is all about behavior change. And oftentimes, if you're not good at being consistent, maybe it's one of these things. Maybe by answering one of these 4 questions, you're going to be able to realize, oh, here are the things that are actually holding me back. And this could be maybe the kind of relationship you're in, or maybe it's the job that you have and the stress around that could prevent you from showing up for yourself. So I really love these 4 questions. They are very, very personal and very enlightening. So I really do think it would be worth taking a look at these 4 questions and pinpointing it to 1 or 2 behaviors that you're really wanting to change in your lifestyle, and see what comes out of it. Let me know any insights that you get from this questionnaire. I want to continue building out this questionnaire, and I really do hope that I can maybe create a questionnaire that people can answer inside of the website and just collect data. And then that way we can see what the comparison is, but in maybe more of a healthy way. All right. So if you're going to do these assessments, or if you do another assessment, make sure that you come back to the assessment in either 3 or 6 months. You could do it once a year if you like. If you're not really an assessment person, kind of like me, especially when it comes to the physical testing. But if you are a physical tester, then I would say 3 to 6 months reassessing is a wonderful idea. And from the assessment, just choose a couple things to work on and focus on it for at least 3 months. see how well you can show up for yourself, be consistent, and get it done. So let me know how this goes. I really hope that this assessment helps you. And please let me know how it goes. And I'll see you in the next one.